Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, Peter, during the past couple of years, we had this strange phenomenon of activist judges. And it's not what we normally talk of activist judges, like, they go and, think, hey, I have my views on these political issues, and so I'm going to, whether it's immigration or whatever, I don't like Trump's policy, boom, I'm just going to vote against it. This is activist judges in criminal cases, where they actually take over the prosecution from the prosecutors. We talked a great deal over the past couple of years in the case of General Michael Flynn and the activist judge, Judge Emmett Sullivan there, where the prosecutors basically said, look, this case was bogus. It was based on ridiculous premises. The evidence was manufactured, essentially non-existent. We want to drop the case against Flynn. And then Sullivan said, nah, you can't do that. I don't agree with it. And he just went on and on, prevaricating, procrastinating, went up to the appeals court, came back down to it, and Sullivan was just going to spin this out, which, a terrible situation for a defendant who may have thought that, well, once the prosecutors are going to drop the case, I'm a free man. But no, Sullivan thought that he knew better than the judges. But now we're getting this in the case of the January the 6th, the defendants of the January the 6th defendants. So yesterday, the chief judge in DC was outraged by the lenience shown towards defendants by the DC prosecutors. So I'm reading the Washington Post story today, and the headline is, Judge asks why Capitol rioters are paying just $1.5 million for the attack, while US taxpayers will pay more than 500 million. And now, the judges said, well, look, I mean, $1.5 million, that's a few broken windows, a few broken doors, a couple of smashed desks. It doesn't even amount to a $1.5 million, but nonetheless, they came up with $1.5 million. But she's not happy about this because she said, well, what about, the taxpayers who have to pay for the capital increase for the Congress? They have to increase security for Congress, for increasing money for the Capitol Police. And what about the massive security fence that Nancy Pelosi put up after January the 6th? And that went on for months and months. So that cost a pretty penny. So how come they're not paying for all of that? And the judges were kind of a bit, the prosecutors were a bit flummoxed. They didn't quite know what to say. And so I'm reading here that it says, Chief U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell challenged the toughness of the Justice Department's stance on their plea bargaining for a Colorado Springs man who admitted to one of 4 nonviolent misdemeanor counts of picketing in the U.S. Capitol. As the story demonstrates, this person spent exactly 20 minutes inside the Capitol. Spent 20 minutes, came out again. And Howell, it says, the Post says, has already asked in another defendant's plea hearing whether no prison misdemeanor plea deals offered by the government are too lenient for individuals involved in, quote, terrorizing members of Congress, unquote, asking pointedly whether the government had any concern about, quote, deterrence, unquote. And then she talks about this, these terrible, asking $500 restitution for people pleading guilty to misdemeanors, only $2,000 for felony cases. Now she thought, no, you got to ask for much more than that. And then she then says, the judge alluded to the $2.1 billion security bill passed overwhelmingly by Congress to cover the cost of the January the 6th attack, including reimbursements totaling $521 million for the National Guard and $70 million to the Capitol Police. And so she went on like this, and then she was appalled that people should, after they've done their time, can just simply basically said that without constant supervision. So I'm reading now from an article in Politico. Howell seemed to lament the fact that those pleading guilty to petty misdemeanors carrying the maximum 6-month jail term couldn't be put under supervised release by the court if they also received jail time. It says, such an option is available and commonly used by judges in felony cases. So it is very, very strange, Peter, that you have a judge berating prosecutors who, I think, by any stretch, are already hammering people who, parading. They went in 20 minutes, they committed no violent act, took a couple of selfies, walked out again. So they're already, we're talking about prison time. Their lives are already destroyed because of the criminal record, the publicity, and so on. So that's already gone. Their future is already gone. And she wants not enough. We need more of that. Now, as you know, under the U.S. adversarial system, judges are supposed to be neutral. You have the prosecutors, you have the defense, and the judge is there as an umpire, just to ensure that there's fair play. I mean, of course, they're much more than that, but nonetheless, that's the theory. This isn't the continental system where you have investigative judges and so on. To me, it seems like a complete abuse. I mean, you have these are essentially political hacks who have already prejudged, before any trial, they've prejudged what has happened, and they're just simply carrying out a political vendetta against defendants, exactly what you're not supposed to have under our legal system. Peter, what's your take?
I mean, what about time served already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very unpleasant time,
absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing is when we look at the cases that the prosecutors are bringing, they're realizing how weak they are. Okay, they're really admitting it. I mean, the guy just picketed and took a couple pictures and sent it on Instagram.
Right.
Okay, and then the judge is demanding intentionality. Well, I mean, I don't know why this person's on the bench, but anyone that knows anything about the laws, and intent is really hard to prove. It's real, and that's why usually it's not pursued.
Right.
Because you use evidence. Okay,
right.
You stay away from intent because it's so difficult. It's so interpretive.
Exactly.
Even words can be interpreted in different ways. Right. But this judge wants to know about intentionality. Well. Right. If the issue of intentionality is being brought up, it's brought up by the prosecutor, right, not by the judge.
Right.
And then how punitive. I mean, I can understand a prosecutor saying, well, this person was really, really bad, and maybe we should keep an eye on them for a couple of months after, maybe an ankle bracelet or something like that. But that's up to the prosecutors to do that. And it's up to the judge to say, nah, yes or no, okay? But it doesn't come from the bench.
Exactly.
This is really bizarre, okay? Yep. I mean, some of the worst things that people have done, they've gone to trial, and if the prosecution doesn't get its act together, the judge says, oh, my hands are tied. I think he's guilty as sin, but you can't prove it. Because that's what judges do. They err on the side of caution, is that they will not, I mean, traditionally, is that you've got to prove your case. Why is the judge trying to say, I want your case to be stronger? I mean, what are you doing?
You're exactly right, because under the adversarial system, which is the burden is borne by the prosecutor. The prosecutor has to prove guilt. Not up to the defendant to prove innocent. It's not the defendant doesn't have to make any kind of a case at all. And if there is any doubt, the doubt has to redound to the defendant. But these judges, they just seem to they've already taken it for granted that they know what was going on in the mind of the defendant. How they can determine that before any trial is taking place. Oh, they intended to terrorize members of Congress. How do you know that?
How do you know that?
Where's the evidence? They intended to disrupt the certification of the election. Again, how do you know that? I mean, they were protesting the certification. They didn't intend to, there's no evidence that they intended to disrupt anything. They just came to protest. That's a, that's a right that every American has. You have a right to protest, anything that's going on in Parliament, a debate that's going on in Parliament. You're protesting a debate.
Yeah, but I mean, and from what I understand, there are people that are involved, the defendants in this process, that they don't even understand the process that what Congress was doing. They were just going there to protest.
That's right. Okay? That's it. Yeah. And it's
did you go there to disrupt Congress? No, we went there to protest.
That's right.
That means you were trying to disrupt. No, I went there to protest.
That's right. And that is precisely why the prosecutors are having serious problems. They're having problems building these cases because they've got this felony obstruction of government. But they have to actually prove that that's exactly what they intended to do, and they don't have the evidence for it, which is why they're forced to do this thing of parading. You wander in 20 minutes, you wander out again. I mean, it's like, you can't. I mean, they've already abandoned all the stuff about insurrection and
armed insurrection.
Yeah, the armed insurrection. Now you got this felony obstruction of government. They're not going to be able to prove that. So basically, that's all they've got. They've got this thing of parading, and the judges. I mean, I don't know what these judges were thinking was going to happen, but then I think they're obviously disappointed. Hey, I thought we were going to send a whole bunch of terrorists and insurrectionists to prison for decades.
And that is because of Nancy Pelosi and her reckless rhetoric, because of Joe Biden and his reckless rhetoric, and of course MSNBC, CNN, and all the rest of them, because they drew their conclusions without any evidence being presented, not knowing any of these people here. And now you have an activist judge that wants to be part of the cause, whatever that is. Okay. And they've caught themselves, a buck short and day late. This is like, well, you pump this all up, and what, she's a 68-year-old pensioner helping another woman up the stairs.
Right.
Where's the terrorism?
That's right. It is, but it's just right remarkable. Now, at some point, I would imagine the public will cotton on and say, "Hey, you've pulled a gigantic fraud. You've arrested 500 exactly, 560 people. You've talked long and loud about insurrection, armed insurrection, as you say, terrorism, and what do you got? You got parading. You got elderly women wandering around taking pictures in Congress. I mean, that's it. That's your insurrection.
Well, unfortunately, my gut tells me that they're going to have a dozen or so that they think they're going to pull the full Monty on them. Okay, we'll see. We'll see.
That's a good question. We'll see what kind of legal representation they get. I mean, I don't think much of the lawyers they've been using so far, because, as we've talked before, these are poor people. They can't afford the crack lawyers, and I don't think they can even raise money. I'm pretty sure if they tried raising money on all these crowdfunding sources, they would immediately be kicked off. Yeah, so it's going to be very hard for them to come up with serious money to get the good lawyers.
But I think this gives us a dark foreboding, because, and I think kind of interesting, again, maybe I'm not connecting the right dots here, but these stories may be telling us, come on, prosecution, we need something. The midterms are coming up, okay? We need, a dozen, Proud Boys. I didn't even know who these groups were until this happened. Okay, the 3%ers. I learned that because of this event too. They've got them. They're playing their cards close to their chest. I think that the prosecutors are looking at these hundreds of people like, what are we doing? Right. We got to get these out of here. Okay, I mean, we got to focus on, again, only coming from me. I'm just supposing this here. We got to put our resources into this. It'll be the Insurrectionist 12 or something like that. and we got to clear the dock of grandmas and grandpas and veterans.
Yeah, no, I think it's right. I mean, it made all these arrests. 560. That's a lot of people. That is a bad. So imagine you've got so many people cluttering up, the DC courts, and so you're right. They're trying to get them out of the door, but it also means they're really coming up with nothing, and that's why the media,
as we predicted,
That's right. That's why the media are downplaying. But these judges are horrifically political people, because Emmett Sullivan, he's one of the judges presiding over some of these cases, the January the 6th cases, as is the other one, who's that woman, who was the judge in the Roger Stone, Paul Manafort.
That one.
Yeah, Kimberly something or other. She's also presiding. Also absolutely demented in the hatred that they spew towards defendants, who haven't pleaded guilty to anything, but already they're full of this venom. I mean, you kind of want to, if I'm a defendant, do I really want to be sitting in a courtroom with that judge presiding, a judge who's already made up her mind about the rights and wrongs of this matter? I mean, it seemed to me, these are all judges who should be recused.
I have to say it, George, because we're cynics, okay? But there are these prosecutors and judges who are saying, there's a book deal here, there's a cable contract here, it's slipping through my fingers, we're never gonna get this chance again. I'm sorry to say it, but it's true.
Yeah, I absolutely. You remember all the people in Watergate, and everybody in Watergate, they all got a book. Everyone gets a book. Judge John Sirica writes a book. Sam Dash, counsel here, writes a book. Fred Dalton Thompson writes a book. Everybody writes a book. Whatever role that you had in Watergate, you got a book deal out of it. So I'm sure that I'm sure Emmett Sullivan will be writing his book. I mean, yes, I guess.
Well, that's Netflix stuff. That's Netflix stuff. Okay.
Right. No, I think that's right. Speaking of Netflix, I mean, Emmett Sullivan. We never really found out what pressure Obama exerted upon on Sullivan, because I do think that it was very interesting how Obama suddenly weighed in on the Michael Flynn case at a crucial time. And then Sullivan suddenly started playing all these games.
I wonder if Sullivan was at the party. What do you bet?
That's a very interesting case. I would not be surprised. Imagine Sullivan, jiving on the dance floor. That would.
And I'm waiting for the Washington Post to put the menu out, because George and I talk about menus all the time. Okay, I want to know what was on the menu.
That's a good question. What was the menu published anywhere? I don't know. I didn't see it, but it's possible it was published.
Well, if it'd been the Trump administration, it would have been leaked. All right, everybody, it's really, really important that we're covering this here, because I think George and I are beginning to see how things are settling here. I think there's some good signs here, and it's confirming what we have said since January 6th, that this is been turned into political hay as they actually come in front of judges are realizing their cases are falling apart like a house of cards here, and there's a desperation going on. Those articles, the Washington Post and Politico, those were published for a reason. Okay.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I mean, there's clear the drumbeat. Hey, you better deliver on this. You promised us sedition. You promised us terrorism. You promised us life behind bars, not 6 months with a petty misdemeanor.
You promised us a civil war.
Right.
No, the conclusions that we draw here at this moment here is that the justice system is really screwed up, okay? And it's people like George and I and people watching this, we got to keep an eye on this here, okay? And see how it's being politicized. And the prosecutors are beginning to realize that they're not going to be able to squeeze out what they were hoping. And so if they can't, activist judges will.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, everybody, we're on Locals, so please go to the gaggle.locals.com. George and I are doing one-on-one Zoom interviews with gagglers. The store is up, lots of good buddy stuff there. We're doing Q&As. We've already done 2. We're going to do 1 this week. George has done a live stream. I'm going to follow suit, and we have a super chat on YouTube to be determined. It'll be this week for sure.
That's right.
And George,
right. And we got the tip jar, Buddy's tip jar. Buddy's looking very depressed because he likes that tip jar when it's full. He gets very, very sad when that tip jar gets empty. Look how sad he looks. So whatever you can help us, would be most appreciated. Look at that. I mean, how can you deny him his little tips? But we don't have Rupert Murdoch, George Soros, Jeff Bezos, anyone paying us. So we rely on our fellow gagglers. We very much appreciate all of your help and support. The more you can help us, the better the product will be. Remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.